Again, if you have just joined us, a U.S. Air 737 has gone down with reportedly 123 people on board in Hopewell Township, Pennsylvania, in Beaver County, just northeast of Pittsburgh. Police do say that, confirm it was Flight 427 that crashed a short time ago in a field behind the Green Garden Plaza, a shopping center in that area. We're now getting figures that there were 126 people on board, that coming from U.S. Air. One eyewitness told CNN that she saw a lot of black smoke at the time, that the plane just appeared to, the engine stopped and it just blew up and just hit the ground. It was her understanding from people at the scene that there were no survivors. But again, we'll be back with more information on this breaking story right after this break. Please stay with us.
1-800-TV2-2222. If you're in the area and you can help supply us with information, we would appreciate a phone call from you. The number may be busy. We ask you to keep trying. We have crews at the scene, but as you can imagine, with a tragedy such as this, with 126 people on board this flight, the Philadelphia-based crew, that it is extremely difficult for our news crews to be able to get to the scene and to be able to get more information. The officials who are at the scene, the police, the fire departments, FAA personnel, U.S. Air crew members, all tied up right now, and as soon as we can get more word from them as to exactly what happened, we will let you know.
As more information comes in from our affiliate KDKA in Pittsburgh and also from eyewitnesses in the area, as well as official emergency crew coordinators, it appears our worst fears are slowly becoming confirmed.
Recapping our top story for you once again as information continues to come in. A U.S. Air jet carrying approximately 126 people on board has crashed near Pittsburgh International Airport. There was no immediate word on survivors, but the latest word we are getting from some emergency personnel and witnesses at the scene is that there do not appear to be any survivors.
Headline News, I'm Lynn Russell, CNN Center in Atlanta. Details still are coming in on this breaking story. A plane carrying at least 123 people has crashed approximately 20 miles northeast of Pittsburgh. Another witness said there was an explosion and the plane went down nose first. Again, U.S. Air Flight 427 from Chicago carrying at least 123 people has crashed in Pittsburgh. We'll have the latest on this as it comes into us.
Flight tonight from Chicago to Pittsburgh. Now, the plane was supposed to land at Pittsburgh and then fly on to Palm Beach, and of course Pittsburgh is a hub, so we're watching the situation very carefully. Once again, a Philadelphia-based flight crew, according to our station in Pittsburgh, was on the flight. The tragic plane crash outside of Pittsburgh tonight. We're staying on top of the story both at Philadelphia Airport and from the Pittsburgh area, and we'll bring you any new information as soon as we get it. I'm Larry Kane reporting from the News 3 newsroom.
This has been a KYW News 3 special report. We now return to regularly scheduled
programming.
programming.
But we're told by the firemen here at the staging area, the Green Garden Plaza, that there were no survivors, so they were more or less not needed at the crash site itself. So that was the first official confirmation that we have, that there were no survivors.
Ralph, now this goes hand in hand, obviously, with the nurse that you spoke to just a little while ago on our air, who claimed that she also was at the scene.
That's right. She said that she was at the crash site and didn't see any survivors on the ground. She saw some people running to the scene to see if they could help in the situation, in the emergency, but she and her husband both did not see any survivors.
Now we are receiving live pictures from the scene. This is west of Aliquippa in Hopewell Township. It's about 20 miles northeast of Pittsburgh. Let's listen into some of the commentary from CNN affiliate KDKA and see what they've learned from the scene.
A downed aircraft. Again, the aircraft flight number 427 from Chicago to Pittsburgh. You were witnessing the video for the first time as I was. Here is some more that we have. This was shot obviously not that long ago because of the darker pictures. This is from the Green Garden Plaza. There is another helicopter. I'm not sure if that is one of the medical helicopters or perhaps from the air base that is stationed out there. Looking over the area. We've been told, again, that Life Flight has taken at least one person from the crash scene to Allegheny General Hospital. Now, whether the person who was taken to Allegheny General Hospital was on board the flight or on the ground. We do not know yet. As soon as we have any of that kind of information, of course, we will let you know. Firefighters all converged on the area, as have police units, state police, and apparently we have an interview. Let's listen. Well, we're not going to listen to that interview at this moment until I guess we get a chance to preview it here at the station. The pictures you are seeing were just being fed back to us just as soon. You're seeing them for the first time as we were from the scene. That's at the Green Garden Plaza in Beaver County near Hopewell Township. The plane went down in Center Township. 126 people on board that flight.
You went to the scene of the crash.
Right. And we were like one of the first people up there. When we got there, there was people running back there like crazy trying to see if we could help. But all we seen was body parts hanging from the trees and just people everywhere. You could just see just parts of them. And my husband said all he saw, the only total body was like a 3 or 4-year-old girl. And he said that's the only one he could recognize as a person. He saw like the heart beating and things like that.
Other than the people running to try to see what they could do, you saw no survivors?
No survivors, no.
Was there flames, a lot of fire?
There was a decent amount of fire, but by the time we walked out, it was almost gone.
Thank you, Denise, very much. Spell your last name again.
Godich.
And you were right here?
Well, that was a nurse from Aliquippa Hospital who went to the scene. A rather graphic description for you as to what she saw at the scene.
Literally plunged from the skies earlier tonight, about 2 hours ago, 6 miles west of the Pittsburgh airport in a township called Hopewell. In a Hopewell Township field, a 737-300 owned by U.S. Air crashed. There were 132 people on board, 126 passengers, a crew of 6. There are no indications of survivors at this time. Of course, we'll have more details as they become available on a complete report on Action News at 11 o'clock. I'm Jim Gardner.
Pittsburgh Airport Fire Department, would they, in your opinion, and I know you're guesstimating here, been on the scene before local fire departments got to the crash scene? Or I guess some closer departments may have gotten there first, I would think, wouldn't they?
The unanswered question there is what kind of communication the airport got from this plane just moments before it went down. What was that communication? Did they send out a Mayday signal, if you will, saying that we are experiencing some severe difficulties and we expect to crash?
Here's what we know at this hour. A U.S. Air 737 en route from Chicago crashed as it was attempting to land at Pittsburgh International Airport. There were 131 people on board, 126 passengers and 5 crew.
An ABC News brief. Now from Washington, Ted Koppel.
Good evening. Just after 7 tonight, a U.S. Air Boeing 737 crashed just 7 miles from Pittsburgh International Airport. The plane was carrying at least 131 passengers and crew. Beaver County Emergency Services have confirmed that there are no survivors. Flight 427 was en route to Pittsburgh from Chicago when it crashed. That's News Brief.
It was going nose down. Come right over top, like it was right where I was. It come right over top of my car.
The plane went down head first, straight down into a hillside here in Beaver County, not far from the Pittsburgh International Airport. Everyone we spoke who was at the scene or who saw the plane go down said they didn't see any survivors. We spoke with one nurse, Denise Godich, from the Aliquippa Hospital. She went to the crash site. She was shopping at the Hills department store in a nearby shopping plaza. When she heard the plane go down, she ran to the site. There were other people running to the site along with her. She said she saw no survivors, just body parts. Something was wrong because there were no emergency vehicles coming in to the opposite direction, coming back to Pittsburgh. So you got chills because you knew something was wrong. Also, we spoke with a fella, a young man from Aliquippa who was at a church. He was at a prayer meeting tonight at the time of the crash. They were indoors, and he said, we heard a thunder, a boom. He said it sounded like an earthquake. Everybody looked at everybody. We raised our eyebrows. We knew something had happened.
Some airport officials that the family members have all been collected and have been taken somewhere. They are not telling us where. Many of the reporters were under the impression that it has been off-site, that is, out of the airport. But they have rounded up as many of the family members as they could find, those that were possibly waiting at the gate for that flight to come in, because, of course, the crash happened so close to the airport that probably anyone who was going into the airport to meet loved ones or business partners were probably standing out.
And it blew up. Our home shook. We thought the windows were going to break out. My husband was in the home. And it was just chaotic. You just did not want to believe or comprehend something like this was happening.
I'm sure that's true.
This exactly, it was 7:03 when this plane blew up. Exactly at 7:03.
You looked at your watch?
Yes.
Did you see the wing tilt up? We're told that the wing tilted up and it went into kind of spiral for a minute.
No, I did not. Like we said, it was so overwhelming because the plane was low, but the engines were running, and then the engines just died. So there's 132 people that just died in seconds.
We're told, I believe the count now is 131, and our thanks to Sandra Zubak. Sam has another eyewitness from shortly after the crash. Sam?
Diane, Carmen Tragada is an emergency medical services pilot who flew to the scene shortly after the crash. Mr. Tragada, when did you get there?
I got there approximately about 7:15 this evening.
Just a little bit after it happened. If it actually happened at 7:19, maybe you got there, what, just a few moments later?
Yes, sir.
What did you see?
Well, when I flew overhead from about 10 miles away, you could see the smoke billowing up. Flew overhead the crash site. You couldn't really see much. The impact from the crash had debris thrown all around the hillside there. There wasn't much intact of the fuselage at all.
Was it clear to you from what you did see that there would probably be no survivors?
No, it looked like there was no survivors whatsoever.
Primetime Live, an ABC News magazine, will continue after this from our ABC stations.
I'm Jim Gardner. A U.S. Air jetliner crashes trying to land at the Pittsburgh airport. 131 people were on board, reportedly including a Philadelphia-based flight crew, and word from the scene is no survivors. The plane had taken off from Chicago, and after Pittsburgh was supposed to fly on to West Palm Beach, Florida. The aircraft involved was the Boeing 737, which has a controversial history. We'll talk to a nationally known aircraft expert about the crash. And we'll talk to pilots and state officials, and we'll tell you how the Red Cross is mobilizing to help in the disaster, and AccuWeather tracks the conditions at the crash site at 11.
September the 8th, 1994, the night a U.S. Airjet crashes near Pittsburgh.
The scene is devastating, and the search for survivors, it's a desperate one.
The crew on board Flight 427 is reportedly from Philadelphia.
And the story now on the Channel 10 News.
WCAU-TV. Now, Ken Matz, Jane Robelo, Ron Burke Sports, and Herb Clark with exclusive Earthwatch weather. This is Channel 10 News.
Good evening, I'm Ken Matz.
And I'm Jane Robelo.
And our top story tonight, a U.S. Air passenger jet crashes near Pittsburgh. It's believed most, if not all, passengers and crew were killed. This was the scene shortly after the crash early tonight.
Now, here's Channel 10's exclusive Earthwatch. Following the flight path of U.S. Air 427, there was some precipitation over the Great Lakes this evening, but near Pittsburgh, there were clear skies. There are no reports of weather problems from the Pittsburgh airport tonight.
And there are reports tonight that the crew of U.S. Air Flight 427 is based in Philadelphia. Channel 10's Dennis Wolfering is live at Philadelphia International Airport with more details on that. And Dennis, what can you tell us?
Well, Ken, U.S. Air tonight says none of the passengers on Flight 427 was headed for Philadelphia. As to whether any of the flight crew members were from Philadelphia, the airline won't say one way or another.
So Channel 10's Andrew Glassman and the crew are headed to the crash site. We'll have reports from Andrew as soon as possible. And now we take you back to our top story of the night, the crash of a U.S. Air Boeing 737 right outside of Pittsburgh. All 131 people on board are believed dead. Reporter Paul Martino joins us live now from our sister station in Pittsburgh with the very latest. Paul?
Well, Jane, we are being told in unconfirmed reports that this plane may have, in fact, crashed nose first, possibly at full power. At least that's what some eyewitnesses are telling us tonight.
It is the deadliest air accident in the U.S. in 7 years. 131 people killed when U.S. Air Flight 427 crashes in a ravine just outside Pittsburgh. Good morning, America. I'm John London.
And I'm Antonio Mora, sitting in for Charlie Gibson. It is Friday, September 9th, a day when investigators will try to find out what happened in this deadly plane crash. Spencer Christian is on the scene in Hopewell Township, Pennsylvania, just a few blocks from the crash site. Spencer?
Antonio, I'm at the Green Garden Shopping Plaza here in Hopewell Township, about a half mile from the site of the tragic crash last night. I just spoke with Lieutenant Governor Mark Singal, who said he just came back from the location. He describes it as just a horrible scene. It's about a 2 football field length area, which is all cordoned off. No one from the public is allowed there right now, just investigators. He described the scene as being horrible, human remains everywhere and small pieces of debris. Everything is just indistinguishable. We are waiting for a briefing at 8 o'clock from federal and local authorities, at which point we hope to have more information and more clues on just what caused the tragic crash. And in just a few minutes, I'll be back with a guest, a helicopter paramedic who was one of the very first people on the scene last night. Joan?
All right, thank you, Spencer. This morning, full coverage of the disaster of U.S. Air Flight 427. Right now, though, we're going to go to Morton Dean at the ABC News Desk. Morton?
Thank you, Joan, and we are beginning the news this morning with that major tragedy. U.S. Air Flight 427 was on its way from Chicago to West Palm Beach, Florida, with a stop in Pittsburgh. It never made it. The jet crashed in Eyewitness, Pennsylvania. 131 people were on board. All were killed. And covering the story for ABC News is Jim Wooten. Jim, can you tell us exactly where the crash occurred, how far from the Pittsburgh airport?
We're about 5 or 6 miles west and a little north of the Pittsburgh airport in Hopewell Township. It's not exactly in Eyewitness, but close to it. Just over a hill, just a quarter of a mile or so from here. It's a heavily wooded area. This morning, heavy equipment will be going in, perhaps if the rain clears and when it gets a little lighter. Heavy equipment will be going in to carve out a path for other salvage and to pick up the remains of those who were killed in the crash. Those who have been to the scene, not us, reporters have not yet been allowed there, are saying that it was a scene of total devastation. The plane apparently disintegrated when it hit the ground.
It was just like World War II, but I never seen anything that bad when I was in World War II. It's a horrible sight. There's debris hanging from the trees, parts of suitcases, seats, the whole work.
Well, they've also recovered...
Of course, the investigation into exactly what happened continues today and probably will go right on through the weekend. Let's shift our attention right now to the weekend weather outlook.
All right, Spencer, thank you very much. Monday on Good Morning America, John F. Kennedy Jr. on this year's Profile in Courage Award. Also, former First Lady Barbara Bush. She will be talking about her new memoir.
And Sunday night are the Emmy Awards right here on ABC. Chantal will have the winners, the losers, and all the highlights for us on Monday morning. We'll see how NYPD Blue does. Bob Skaggs will also perform here on Monday.
Absolutely. Have a great day. See you tomorrow. See you Monday.
And I'll see you Sunday.
That's right.
Good morning, America, in our 5th year as #1 for news and information in the morning.
Within the last half hour, word has come that the pilot was from Moorestown, New Jersey, and here are the other developments we have been following today. The death toll in the crash stands now at 132 as investigators get their first look at the wreckage. Witnesses describe a gruesome scene of body parts and devastation. And the plane's flight recorders are already at a federal lab in Washington being analyzed as investigators try to piece together what went terribly wrong.
Now the details. Federal investigators on the scene outside Pittsburgh now trying to figure out what went wrong with Flight 427 as the painful process of recovering and identifying the victims gets underway. The scene from the air in the light of day is indeed one of utter destruction, debris and human body parts scattered over a wide area. All 132 people on board were killed when the U.S. Air Boeing 737 tumbled from the sky and crashed on approach to Pittsburgh's International Airport last night.
A date with disaster for a Delaware Valley pilot and his passengers aboard U.S. Air Flight 427. The death toll now stands at 132 dead in the worst air crash in years. Andrew Glassman in Hopewell Township tonight. Andrew.
Well, good evening, Janet. The 737 crashed in a wooded area about a half a mile behind me. Witnesses told us that they watched the plane disappear beneath the tree line. As you mentioned, representatives from the coroner's office and investigators from the National Transportation Safety Board are right now combing through the wreckage, beginning their investigation.
A narrow road or a ridgeway that goes through a wooded area. It may be important to note that the crash seems to be confined to a smaller area. It does not appear that there's debris spread out over a wide area. That could be an indication that the plane went in at a very steep rate of descent, perhaps what's called a power descent. It is also striking to note that there should be an entire 737 down there. There are very little pieces. There is nothing at all that resembles an aircraft except a couple of pieces of the tail. According to the eyewitnesses we've talked with, the aircraft came in from this direction and suddenly veered over to the right and apparently crashed down there in this ravine. At this point, we can see some of the workers dressed in their biologically protective clothing. We can see a collection, a small collection of what appears at this altitude to be body bags collected at this end of the crash site.
Pennsylvania Governor Bob Casey also took a tour of the crash site by helicopter this afternoon. The experience left him with vivid impressions.